All you gotta do is just do is just
Oh, baby. I've got a mess. Go away. It's making so much noise. Where is Riverside? Come back to me. Man, my computer is really not liking doing this right now. Wait, that's the wrong button. Oh, there it goes. Got it. Just had to press the escape button. It's a new angle. What do you think of this side of my face? It's good, huh? Hello, everybody. Well, Wessel, hello. That's all there is. No, there's a few more people here. What's going on? What's going on? If you can hear any background noise, it's because I've got my window open. And I've got my window open because it's really hot. And yes, I am in Europe. And no, I don't have air conditioning. I have a fan and I have a window. So that's how I'm surviving. That and water. This is just water. I promise. How are you all doing? If anybody's here, is it going all right? You having a fun week, year? Can you believe it's the second half? We're well into the second half of 2026. It's almost over, folks. It's like, I was thinking about this earlier. You know, it's because I've been listening to lots of old music that I grew up with when I was like 15, 16, and I'm like, that was 26. Basically, that music is now older than I was when I was listening to it, which is mind-blowing. And it just made me think, like, what have I been doing? We're 26 years into a century, and it's nuts. Anyway, so my whole like frame of reference is just like on a different scale today. So that's interesting. But you know what else is happening? You know what else is happening this week? Laravel Live Denmark has been happening this week, yesterday and today. It looks like fun. It looks like, I mean, I keep seeing pictures and stuff on my feed, and yeah, this is just fun. It's just so nice to see all the people that I know getting together and having fun without me. And I'm just seeing it on the internet. Are you there? Are you watching me whilst you're there? I don't think that's true. What else is like, are you keeping tabs on what's going on there? There's supposed to be some big sit down between Taylor Otwell and DHH today. The famous Dane, at least in our circles. Yeah, DHH, creator of Rails, and kind of programming hero to some, many, is at Laravel Live Denmark. That's nuts. Looks like, yeah, they're going to get on this afternoon and have a chat together in front of everybody. How fun is that? How cool. Anyway, we can't talk about stuff that's not going on here because that's quite boring. I am not in the UK, Vessel. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I am going to try and pronounce people's names correctly. Maybe I'll joke around a little bit. I don't know. We'll see where we go. I'm not in the UK. I'm actually in Gran Canaria, which is technically part of Spain, but you know, hundreds of miles away from actual Spain. Larry, I'm sorry. It's just me today. Shane is in Denmark or somewhere around that region. He was speaking at Laravel Live Denmark yesterday. So he's there. Unfortunately, I couldn't be with him. But that means that he is not with me now. And I thought, well, we'll do a show anyway. So let's carry on. Buenas. Thanks, Wilson. Nice to see you. Right. Well, so what have we got in store for today? Weasel. Okay. Well, if my pronunciation is okay and up to par with your expectations, then I'll stick with it. But if you prefer Weasel, we'll do Weasel. Yeah. What are we going to do today? Let's have a think, shall we? There's a lot of stuff. You know, we've been doing releases every Friday for the last few weeks. So yeah, should we try and do another release? I actually don't think there's enough stuff in there to do a release. So as it happens, I haven't been able to. I mean, I've been kind of on my own this week. That's the thing, because Shane's been traveling and doing his talk. So I've been under the. Well, yeah, I've also traveled. So I didn't get home from my trip to Boston and then London. I was in London, as you might know if you watched the last couple of weeks. My backdrop was a little bit different to what it is right now. And that's because I was in London, and I didn't get back from London until Monday. So I was traveling on Monday. And I've had a slow week. It's been tough this week for me. I haven't slept very well because it's been so hot. Yeah, my brain and my body is just trying to like get back into a normal routine, which has been slightly unusual. So we'll look at that in a moment. TJ, yeah, it was so cool being there with you last year, even though I almost didn't make it. It is, you say 11 out of 10, and I think that's that's fair if you multiply it by 1 billion, because it is just so good. Like the gap between that 10 and 11 is just massive. Um, I think there's a whole bunch of things. I'm keen to get your take on it as well, if you're still listening. Is like, why is it so good? And I'm just going to give you a few of my quick roundups and why I think everybody should try and get to Laravel Live Denmark at some point. Is one, the location. So Copenhagen in the summer is a beautiful city. It's amazing. There's lots of fun stuff. You might still get rained on. You might still get a bit cold, but generally it's amazing. You should visit Copenhagen in the summer. It's fantastic. There's loads of good food, loads of good drink, loads of good places to go and see. Um, the venue where they actually hold the conference is really cool. I don't actually know what it. I think it's just like a music venue, or they've got like a bar built in and stuff. So it feels very like um, sort of a grungy garage music venue, and I don't mean garage as in the genre of music. I mean just in terms of it's like a warehouse that they've converted into some space for events, and um, it's cool, and it's right next to a food court, which I've talked about loads of times because it was just so good. There's just so much food out the back, like different types of food and everything. So and with the ticket, you get access to any of that basically. So you get to go out and just pick some food and show them your ticket, and then get it for free essentially, or very very little cost. It's like a massive subsidy. So that's really nice. Um, and the people, the people of Denmark in general are really nice. The When you mix in Laravel, the Laravel community, the Laravel community's general feel in that environment, I think it gets even better. I think it's just very, very nice. Everybody, I mean, maybe I was being treated a little bit better than normal last year because I'd literally been in hospital the 3 days before going to the one day that I made. But people were super, super kind and welcoming and everything. So that was nice. Um, yeah, that's right. It was crazy. Um, I didn't take the water taxi. I should have done that. It was just like it would have taken so long, and the hotel that they put you in is kind of in Copenhagen, and then the venue is a little bit away from there, and it just took so long to get there. That would have been my only sort of complaint really about it. I feel like, yeah. Um, Exactly. This is exactly like TJ's got it. You should just be on the show, TJ. If I send you a link, you want to come on and chat with me about this. um, so yeah, it was a super good venue, super good place, super good people, and really good conference. The bit that I saw her anyway. Um, and I imagine that it will be the same again, if not better this year. So that's cool. Um, yeah. What else have we got going on here? Samuel? Well, we can talk about this. Like, yeah, let's keep the chat going, and I'll talk about whatever you want to talk about for half an hour or so before we get into something else. I tried viewing the Supernative app with Jump, but the app doesn't display it on Jump. Well, that's pretty gnarly. It should. Let's try. Let's see. How do I do that? So let's just dive into that. Sorry, I'm getting my phone out of my pocket. I don't know why I left it in my pocket. But okay, let's have a look and see if we can make this work. So do I have... Question is, do I have a version of the jump app that will work to do this? And we can set it up fresh. Plug that in. Because my phone is dying. So, yeah. I don't know is the answer. I think this one should be okay. It looks like the right one. So shall we do that? Shall we do it together, and I'll run everybody through how this should work, and maybe we can figure out what's going wrong with it. See if it is going wrong. I know quite a few people seem to have issues getting jump running with things. I'm going to put it down to a few different issues and not just assume that it should be working or that it's just one problem, because it's a complex set of technologies working in tandem. So I wouldn't be surprised if we bump into a few issues. Let's have a quick run through this. Let me just set up my screen so that we can do something tidy. Dun, da, da, da. Right. And I need to do... I should have a button that just does this, right? I should have a single button that changes everything for me. No, I don't want to do that. But I don't have that yet. Maybe one day. Please move. Thank you. So let's just share my entire screen. So this is, this is a starting point. So I'm going to start with bezel. Ooh, that is way too small. Okay, so this will do for now. This is the jump app, right? And then we want item. Excellent. So let's bring that. So I've actually, this terminal's already in a super native repo, but that one's one that I use for working. So we're going to do a new one. And I want to... Please don't put that there. That's very annoying. I want to get the super native repo in its current state. So let's get that up as well for everybody to see. So you might have seen this repo. This was is our demo repo of all of the super native features, and this is kind of where it got life, you know. Yeah, and it's not been updated very well. So this is, maybe some of this stuff is out of date, but it's we'll improve all of this in time, or if somebody wants to PR some changes to make this better. But this should be a way to just go and try both super native, and we're also going to try jump out with it. So let's just do the basic thing. Let's copy this down. I think I can call it super native 2. And then the next step that I want to do, and this is saying all of this, but I think I can just do composer setup, which should do a bunch of things for us. I don't know if it will do the native install. Oh no, this one hasn't really been properly set up for that. So let's just do native install. Storm Dream Forest. Sure, let's keep that. I don't really care. This is just for running on jump anyway. So we'll get this working, hopefully, and then we'll just right, so it's discoverable. And if I switch back to Bezel, you can see it says already one server nearby. And that is the one that's on my phone, right? So I'm using my phone. One server nearby. Super Native 2, great. And it's working. So things to rule out there. I mean, obviously, I'm using a Mac. I'm using an iPhone. So if you're not using that setup, if you've got like Windows and Android, maybe there's something different there that's maybe not quite working. The other things to point out are that you have to be on the same network. And I think also at the moment there might be some issues with ports. So if some of these ports don't work out to be the expected ports on your machine, then things might not work. So you kind of need to work through a few things together. I don't know if I don't necessarily think we should try and debug one person's setup on a live stream, because I think that's going to be quite challenging, especially just with the delay, text, and everything. So, but if you've got a different setup here, then, well, the other thing I guess I can try, I have got an Android. It might take about 10 minutes for it to boot up because it's really rubbish. If it even comes on. Do you like my little dinky Android phone? And I don't think I've ever done like screen sharing from an Android on this Mac, so I don't even know if that will work. Anyway, let's let that warm up because that's clearly going to take some time. I'm only all I can offer at the moment with regards to jump in different setups than kind of what I've just proposed is the sort of happy path. I think the best thing to do is to, I mean, I've seen a few messages on Discord come through, and I do know that people are stumbling into something, but in sort of order of importance, make sure that you've installed the very latest version of the Jump app onto your phone. So get it in the store. It should be version 3 at least. So Jump app version 3. That is what will let you do super native, basically. So you get all of this stuff. Then, and by super native, I mean the tooling in NativePHP Mobile version 4, not the super native repo, not to be confused, although I know that is a little bit confusing. This super native project is just a demo project for super native, the super native features. So we had a different name for that at one point. It was kind of native UI and all the, well, yeah, there's different things. But the repo got called super native. The actual library version 4 is called super native as well. So make sure that you're using the latest version of NativePHP Mobile so that it's speaking kind of the same language. here, this will be using version 4 point something, right? Let's just dig back through this and see where it actually did it. Oh, that's annoying. That's a bad test, isn't it? The super native repo is using dev main. Well, that's kind of surprising that it even worked. So let's just stop that for a second. And do I want to do? I think I can just do composer require native PHP mobile, and it might bring in 4.2, and we'll try again. Just to make sure that what we've actually released does actually work in the setup that I've got here. Let's just do that again. Let's get that back up. Okay, so it's detected it. Right, yeah, it's still there. Cool. And it still works. Good. So yeah, it should be working with those things if they're on the right versions. I am going to try it on this Android, but I don't know what's happened to this Android now because the screen is blank and it's not responding to any of my taps. It's a brick. Yeah. Let's find another cable and plug it in, because it sounds like this one is out of battery, which it shouldn't be because it was been off for the entire time. So what? So we'll let that, okay, fine. We'll let that warm up even more. Just like give it a little, there you go, buddy. Right, what have I missed? Where are we? Hey, Sonali. Sorry, that was a few minutes ago. Yeah, repo name. Thanks, Vessel. That's correct. What I was alluding to. I think the docs actually have some issue here at the moment because I've got a feeling that we probably have something. No, that one's okay. That's okay. Maybe there's something about. Yeah, it's this one. I do kind of feel like this needs to disappear. So this is on the architecture intro. Well, maybe disappear is a bit harsh. Excuse me. We need some variation of this that is a bit clearer as to what we're getting into, because I do agree that this naming isn't great, given that the super native is really an architectural thing, and this super native repo is just a demo of that as an application. And the fact that we had the kitchen sink before, we still got the kitchen sink. In fact, I think there's multiple kitchen sinks now, and they're all becoming a little bit hairy because they're all in different states and demonstrating different things. We'll consolidate all of that at some point, but that's a whole piece of work that doesn't necessarily have a huge amount of benefit. It's hard to justify when there's loads of other things going on. Yeah, I think we should try and work through some of this stuff, because I do think that the onboarding has got gotchas, and we should solve those. Like we need to make it smooth and easy as possible for people to get going with this project. And I think some of these things are maybe hurdles along the way now, because we've been moving so quickly in some respects to get this stuff going. Yeah, so going back to like things to check around jump, this is a good point. So it's always going to be on the local LAN, right? So if you're not connected on the same network, and maybe not even on the same Wi-Fi, so like if your router puts out multiple Wi-Fi networks, like a 5 gigahertz and a 2.4 gigahertz, it may even segregate like IP addresses and DNS and all of that kind of thing, which I don't like. That's a whole other problem space. But just try and make sure that your development machine and your phone are on the exact same network. That's going to be like the happiest path to getting things working. There might be in some future some way to make that work more expansively than that, but I wouldn't rely upon that. Just get it on the same network, and it should detect when there's an app that's in this mode, So, let's try not to break my phone. Let's do the 3-finger swipe out. So it's basically got to be able to connect to your laptop. So it's fine. It knows through some broadcasting, which is also something that, again, the levels of complexity here are quite high, but there's broadcasting that's going on from your laptop or your development machine across the network to say there's a thing here, which the Jump app explicitly can pick up on to do this. If this isn't finding it for a start, then scan the QR code. I don't know why that still double shows. That's weird. So in the terminal, make sure that your terminal is set up so that you don't have lines between these things. Some people have got like very spacious terminals, which is fine. But then tap the Jump QR button and scan the code, and it will slide away and jump into the app, which is exactly the same. It's the exact same as the server button here at the bottom showing up. But it's less reliant, I guess, upon like if you're not seeing the server button, or when you're tapping that option, nothing's happening. It may be because it has not been able to get the right details through. It should be working the exact same way through the QR code, but it may be different. We could go and investigate that. We could try and fix that. But again, I don't want to solve that without having bumped into the issue. So if we can get this, is it going to come to life? Maybe. It's powering on again now. We'll try it with the Android. I'm going to think a lot. I'm going to use my brain. I'm going to try and use my brain. I'm going to say that I think, and this Android on my network with my Mac is going to work fine with Jump. I don't even know if I've got the Jump app installed on it, so we'll soon find out. But I suspect it's going to be okay. And then it's going to come down to like, do you have firewall rules on that are preventing devices even on your network from connecting to your computer? So I can't speak for Windows. Mac is usually pretty okay with stuff like that. If you've explicitly, like when you first do Jump this way, you might get prompted on a Mac to say, do you want to allow external connections? And you obviously say yes, because that's exactly what you're trying to do. And then your Mac is going to let devices on the network connect to it in this way, which is fine. I don't know what it's like on Windows, but if you've got some rules somewhere like Defender or Windows Firewall or whatever it is that might be blocking connections from the network, then you're going to have to allow that. So you're going to have to dig into, I don't even know what it's called, control panel now, control panel settings somewhere, and sort that out. Hey, Willem. Nice. Oh, some more hellos. Some more hellos from around the world. Look at that. Philippines. Nice to have you. My guy, Miro Studio. No, that's not fair. Sorry. Is it Maki Miro? Maki Miro? I say Miro. Who says Miro? Raj, can we expect live terminal debugging, which is logs of when we run PHP native run like Flutter, we will get live debug logs, right? Like that. Is it on the bucket list? So that's funny. Sorry, I'm going to talk about bucket list for a moment because that's an interesting choice of word. I've always seen the bucket list as the thing that the stuff that you do before you die. So just to comment on that, this is not. It's not on the bucket list. No, I mean, maybe I'm getting that the wrong way around. Maybe it's the stuff that you put on your list that I'll do one day, but I hope I do before I die. That which is also kind of, maybe that's too late. No, this stuff is definitely coming. I would say it's going to be better than Flutter, because I mean, I know where it's going. We've talked about it a little bit before, but Tesseract, which John Costa is working on, is going to be the way to do debugging. There might be some subtle variations on that, like some other options that are afforded by the stuff that happens to support Tesseract. But the fundamentals are that Tesseract is going to be the way to do debugging, and that's what we're driving towards. So it's going to be way better than Flutter's terminal debugging. That's all I can really say about that at the moment. He did demo it a couple of weeks ago at the Vibes, and hopefully we'll get a video of that soon. Hello there. My name's Simon, not there. Sorry. Terrible British jokes. I've been working on a fork of the docks. Larry, you bad boy. I mean, I love it. This we should talk about stuff like that if you're just like diving in. I absolutely encourage everybody to go and do this, but let's try and coordinate a little bit. There's loads of bits, moving parts in the docs that I think will need some attention. I think Andy Swick has brought to our attention quite a few things, and they've done a survey which you might have seen posted around. In fact, I should find, is that still open or is it closed? I don't know. I should find that, shouldn't I? Where was it? And I think it was actually last reposted by yeah. Gosh, Andy. Where is... This is the worst way of doing finding somebody's tweets, just reading down the timeline. But I can't think of what it would be otherwise. So let's say survey. That just feels too, yeah. Oh no. Oh God, what are we going to see next? Form. No. No. Well, was it Zach? Come on. Oh my days. Am I getting that wrong? No. I know that he reposted it. Where is it? I don't know. This is terrible. This is great content, isn't it? Oh, here it is. Oh, okay. I mean, I was going to say Google. Twitter search is pants, clearly, because I'm sure I did Hyla Zach survey and it didn't. Right. Well, it's here. So, and it's still active. Anyway, some of this gives you an opportunity to share some explicit feedback. Please go and fill this in. I'll repost this again. Let's undo and repost. So yeah, there should be, and I think Andy's going to put some stuff together for this, hopefully. Some actionable items from that of like things that we can go after specifically to improve, and then we can start improving it. We'll try and get that somewhat coordinated as its own little project in a public space so that people can pick stuff off of it and what have you, because I think there's a lot of stuff there which I'm finding it really difficult to keep on top of with everything else. You know, when we've got a business that we need to run in order to keep this project alive, and that has to take the priority. So really, really leaning on the community to help out with a lot of these things, and just try and steer it in the right direction. So I'm all for forking the docs, coming up with PRs, definitely, but to save everybody unnecessary wastage of tokens and what have you, I feel like we should try and coordinate it a little bit. But that doesn't mean don't do anything until we've sorted that out. Please carry on. But yeah, I don't know. That's really tricky. Okay, moving on. This is Realty Urgent. Want to know the ETA for RTL and localization support because we have an app waiting for Arabic support. Thanks. Well, I don't know. Is there any? I've seen PRs around this. Okay, so let's just have a quick. There is technically nothing stopping anyone from building this to suit their needs. So this is all open source, and you can make some changes to two things. Let's just go RTL. Let's see if this shows. You can fork, right? So there's no open PRs for RTL, but there was this one for WebView, which somebody closed 1 hour ago. Okay. Interesting. This was made an hour ago and then closed an hour ago. So something's not right here. That's interesting. So I didn't come across that until just now. Oh, this is like the same person, but back in March. Is this the online dev? I don't know. Yeah. So this was my last comment on this from a while ago, was that this doesn't really work so well for where we're headed. Could we move it to work with Supernative? And I don't know where we're at. I guess that this other PR was kind of an attempt at that without directly referencing it, it seems. So anyway, my point is that there are PRs coming through for this kind of thing. It's not something that we can prioritize working on between the two of us internally. And I'm sure there are lots of people that could benefit from it, but this is like the one project that I'm aware of that somebody's saying that they need it for. So, it's kind of not there's not huge demand for it right now. So I would say take a fork, build the functionality that you need to have, get AI to help you if you can. And if you get it into a place where you feel that it's good enough by your own standards to share, then PR that back. That's for RTL. I think most of the things that are needed for that in the native stuff are going to be fairly straightforward, honestly, because the platforms all support right to left natively. So it's just there's going to be some few edge cases of things that need to be flipped around to work properly. I'd be very surprised if it was a hard task. The other side to it is localization, and localization is handled entirely by Laravel. So there should be no issue at all with localization. So if you're trying to localize your application, do it the same way that you would do any Laravel application. There might be some small edges where some native component doesn't accept or doesn't render the right to left in the way that you expect. Please fix that. Feel free to PR, raise an issue even about it specifically, but PRs are better, honestly, than just raising issues. Yeah. John's here. Look at that. Sorry, I'm really behind in the chat because I'm waffling a lot, as you can tell. We're already at 48 minutes. This is crazy. Yeah, lots of response to the online dev in the chat. Sorry, I missed all of that and just gone through it myself. I should read these first. I'm not very fast at reading. Oh, and then it's just jumped a ton. Okay. Do you use any special prompt when moving an app from V3 to Supernative? That's a great question. No, but I'm going to show you something that will probably be helpful. If you, I don't think you need any particular prompt. I think that you can just say, like, I'm using V3 right now, and I want to move my app to V4 and Supernative, but make sure that you have done this. Set up the MCP server, because that will give your agent access to all of the docs for V3 and V4, so it can work out between the two. And on top of that, make sure that you're using Laravel Boost. So you will need to, maybe this is automatic now. I hope it's automatic, but you might need to, after you upgrade to version 4, run the Boost install again, just so that it gets the latest version of the skills. And I wonder, now I'm saying that, let's do mobile UI. Does this have anything in here? Yeah, so the mobile UI package has got a Boost skill or guidelines built into it. So, and I don't know if these are actually, like, I'm just skimming some of this really quickly, and some of it feels a bit potentially dated in some of the wording that is used. But this should, when you should install this package, obviously you're going to need to anyway for to get all of our edge components. But then do the Boost install after, because then this this guideline file will be pulled in. And so then Boost plus your agent should have access to everything that it needs to have a good go of that. So yeah, update to v4, install the mobile UI package, and do a Boost install, just to be clear. And then just go, hey, Claude, or whatever you call your favorite agent, do it. And it should work out okay. I mean, we've had quite a few people just smash through it, and it's been like a few hours maybe, and it's mostly done, and it's just like tidying up and tweaking certain things. So I haven't done it personally because I haven't had a need to do it, but I will. I should do it. Oh, the Android is alive. Let's do fine. Well, go away. But we still have to wait. We still have to wait a few minutes for it to come. Oh no, this time it's actually here straight away. Right. So, I don't know how to use this thing. Shall we try and get it? How do I? Guide me, folks. You know how to do this, don't you? Teach me how to. Oh, it's here. It's already there. That was good. Let's pop this out. And can I close that? Oh no, that's not going to do that. Let's just get this out of the way. That's gross. Stop. Man, how do people use these tools every day? That's horrific. What? I can't be offline. Try again. Oh man. I mean, it definitely knows about my network, so. Oh, you know what it is? It's because it's like further away. Somebody's moved it. Is there a way to make this so that it's less horrific? No. The answer is no. Okay. Well, it says it's connected now. So let's try getting the latest. No, now it just doesn't. Oh my goodness. I mean, I really feel sorry for people who are on whatever this sound. This is a Motorola. Don't get one of these. Oh, I have played around with the top end Android device, and they are very good, but this isn't very good. This one is not. This is not. Where do I go? No. Oh my goodness, no. It is in here somewhere. Hey, there. I knew I remembered where it was. Right, let's get this updated. Wilson has got the right ideas. I don't even know where those skills are. Are they in the Mobile Air repo? I just want to get that in my head a little bit because I don't. Yeah. So these were added. Looks like Shane did these already. So there is a whole skill to try and help you move from V3 to V4. Again, there's so much there. I have not had the yeah, some of that's kind of wrong, but it should work out fine. I think with those in the context window, you should be fine. I think that's sorry, just jumping around to that previous issue because I'm seeing messages. Java required on desktop sucks. Yes. Well, there's no real escaping that, unfortunately. You want to build for Android, that's what you've got to have. I mean, I don't know about that at all. Using GPUI instead of Composer, and do you mean actually instead of PHP's Composer, or do you mean something else? And Sam, I know that this one's aimed at Vessel, but if you want to create both the website and the mobile version, I create two projects, one for the website and the other for the mobile version, so that it's more mobile friendly. Don't know if that's a question or a statement, but we do have that one come up quite a lot. And well, I'm going to leave it until next week because Shane's back next week, I think. Yeah. So we've got some news on that front. And if you were at or paying attention to Laravel Live Denmark, you will probably know what that news is. But it has been announced. I'm not going to say it here because I want to save it for when we're together. So we'll save it for next week. But there's some very cool news coming. Right, let's see. This is probably updated. Yeah. So the thing with, like, when you say website and mobile version together, the bit that I want to just touch on there is, like, you shouldn't put a server-based application that's not the client. So this is kind of tricky because there will be server-based applications that act as clients, and you may already have some experience with this if you run a headless CMS or something like that. Like the CMS side is the back end, and that's like on that's your real secure, like, back end where you don't give out all of the secrets and keys to people. So if you're talking about a website in the traditional sense, that's kind of like your back end. It's the safe area. And then your mobile apps would be like a client application. So they might interface with that backend, but over an API. And just to help keep that the different security sort of perimeters clearly defined, it's just better to have them as two separate applications. And they could be in the same repo, as like a mono repo where you have like server and client as two subfolders. But yeah, I don't. Sorry, that was distracting. The um, the key thing for me there is that you don't end up in this scenario, because the danger is they're now the same. If you're doing Laravel on the server and you're doing Laravel on the client, it now feels like you've got the same code everywhere, right? I've got the same language and I can run the same code, and so I can create some convenient setup where I'm just spinning all of this code around between the two places, and it's fine, and I don't need to think about it too much. But you do need to think about it. You actually need to think about it more, because the danger is that you start, or your AI, in fact, will just start using code from the one project inside the other without regard for its boundaries. And so you need to define those boundaries somehow. And you can either spend all of your time defining those boundaries in the context window in your skill files or in your agents.md or whatever it is, and try and make sure that the agent obeys all of that. Or you can just separate the projects like everybody else does anyway. So that is a hard boundary. Then it becomes a very clear boundary for the AI. You just tell it, if it's a mono repo and you want it to work across both, you just tell it this is the hard boundary. And so no code from this one should ever reference code from that one. Whereas if you mingle all of that code together, then there's a danger that your server-side application is now trying to reference code that only exists in the client side, and vice versa. And then what's going to happen? Well, maybe it'll work to start with because you deploy everything everywhere. But when you start to realize that you shouldn't deploy everything everywhere, and you start yanking code out of different places during your CI workflow, now you're going to end up with broken production, because it's going to be depending on code that doesn't exist in production in one of those places. So just don't mix them. It's way better. Like, yeah, it's going to be way better in the future. We'll get to a really good place, and I think you're going to like it. But for now, don't mix those projects. What do you mean by cliffhangered? I don't know. Was that aimed at me? Did I do something wrong? No. Okay. In Jump, is there a way to enter the IP to use? As on my Linux, I never get a QR code generated. This is why. So I'm trying. I'm going to go and get one, hopefully this weekend. I ordered a normal PC, a non-Mac, so that I could install Linux and Windows, because I don't have a Windows machine either. And I don't want, I haven't got space to install either of those on my Mac. So I'm going to get one of those, and we'll work through some of these improvements to the Linux stuff. But there isn't a way at the moment to define the IP address to go to. It is wholly dependent upon the QR code or the MDNS stuff. So if that's not working, I'm sorry. If you can figure out why a QR code isn't rendering in your terminal, that would be a very helpful PR, because frankly, I don't understand why that wouldn't work. There's a package that does it for us that we depend upon inside of NativePHP Mobile. I think it's in NativePHP Mobile. Let's have a look. Let's go do some digging. Pretty sure it's called Android. Yeah, which, not to be confused with Android. This is completely different. Android QR code is just a way to generate QR codes. I think it's a wrapper around one of the, it's like a Laravel wrapper around one of the other underlying. There's one called Bacon. We should dig in. Yeah, I don't really want to spend time on this, but is it the same QR code? Maybe. Yeah, there we go. Look at that, 2.6 million downloads a month. Wow. 78 million downloads. Yeah, there you go. Makes use of Bacon QR code. So that's the underlying PHP userland package that generates QR codes. And this, maybe it's not even a Laravel specific thing. I think it's just like an enhancement for like developer experience. Because Bacon is a bit verbose, as I remember. It's bringing the validator together as well. So, okay, yeah, there's a few bits and pieces here. So, I don't know. I don't know exactly why that particular package over another, but this is the one that we use. This shouldn't have, as far as I understand it, any issues whatsoever rendering out into a terminal on a Linux machine. I mean, it would be interesting because, yeah, there's. Obviously, this is trying to render out as a graphic of some kind, so PNG, SVG, but we are doing something on our side for sure to make that work inside of a terminal output. So I don't think this does it by default. So maybe it's somewhere in what we're doing with that. Again, I don't want to dive in too much because I don't have a Linux machine that I can test that on right now, and I can't spin one up very easily. It's going to be a nightmare to try and do it on anything other than a machine that's right in front of me. So we're not going to do that. But if you can figure out why that's not rendering and want a PR, that would be great. This is a really interesting question. But before I answer that question, I'm going to talk about async PHP. Let's just do. I know this is really sad in some respects, but I'm on my own, and I'm going to read ads. But we have sponsors. They come and sponsor the show. They expect us to do the show. They expect us to read out their things. And you've been paying attention for a very long time, so thank you. Please give just a few more moments of attention to these very important messages. Where are we? Live, that's what I want. So this episode, as the last few episodes have been, has been brought to you by Statamic. Statamic is the Laravel CMS that you can drop into any project. It's battle tested, powerful, and easy for anyone to use. It powers sites like Laravel.com, Spiegel.de, and OpenTable.com, and maybe one day your mum's recipe blog. And also Ballast. In fact, let me do the link thing first. So let's do edit. Nope, that was the wrong button. I'm really good at this. So statamic.com. Go and check that out. And Ballast. Answering the question, does shipping faster result in more fragile code? Reliable velocity and code durability metrics. Proving that you can build durable software despite increased velocity thanks to AI. Go and check that out at ballast.now. That's by the Artisan Build crew. So thanks to both of those for sponsoring. That helps us not do the show. It helps us to keep on making native PHP free and produce all of the packages that we're doing and keep on working on all of the stuff that we're working on. So go and check them out. Right. Back to this question. We said async PHP. Where was that? Right. Let's just get that up again. Have you considered using true async PHP instead of vanilla PHP? Yes. So this is quite a complex topic, I think, to get into, and I'm just going to answer it simply with yes, which I've already done now like 3 times. So we've considered it. To be very specific, we've considered it. But it's not something that we can use yet. There's quite a few things that need to change in core PHP to enable that to work, and it's not clear whether that will be supported long term. That's the challenge from my point of view right now. So if we were to try true async, in order for us to try it, it's not just like an extension that you can install on the side of an existing PHP build pipeline. You have to patch PHP in a lot of places to get it to work, which we've done in part, and then we haven't yet got to the point where we're building it for the mobile environments to see how that works. But assuming that just worked and that we then had this true async ability baked into PHP, the dependency itself then becomes a problem for us, because if they stop working on it, they stop supporting that work, or if PHP core goes in a different direction, that means that it's always a headache for us to rebuild. Like we have to fix some stuff and then recompile. and then always fixing some stuff and updating and recompiling when stuff changes, then it's going to be more of a headache for us to keep up to date with the latest versions of PHP, which is what fundamentally everybody wants to use. So it's non-trivial to adopt something like that. I would love to, honestly, because I think it is needed. So yeah, we'll see. Maybe in time, maybe it will get adopted into the core somehow, and it'll just become a native feature of PHP anyway. But just to say, we do have another approach, which would be a sort of poor man's version of async PHP, which I'm kind of keen for, honestly, because it solves a lot of those problems. And instead of it's only something we can do with native PHP in this way. It's not something that we could ever like contribute back to PHP as a public plugin or extension or anything like that, or even as a way to update PHP core itself, because it's too dependent upon the consumers. In our case, right now, Swift and Kotlin. So the way that it works, there's a PR for this. I can't remember what number it is. So let's have a look at that real quick. I might be able to see. I think the name of it is not very good, so it's harder to spot. It's kind of there. Did you hear a buzzing noise? Was that just me? 1 second. I think somebody's buzzing my door. Which, give me just a moment and I'll be right back. It was only a short while, wasn't it? What was I saying? Async, right? We've got this PR, and I've just polished up a bit of work on this, and it should be working. I need to do some testing. There's so many PRs, so many PRs. I need to do a bit of testing, but I'm going to talk about this because you've raised the topic of async. And we do need a way to do this in general in native PHP. That's fundamentally like, we do need this because we are, when we're running, sorry, I'm trying to provide useful context here because I think it's really relevant. So this is a bit of an aside, but when we're running the UI, we've got one PHP thread that's running the UI. So it's generating all of the UI stuff. And it's nice and fast. So it's a persistent thread that we boot up at the beginning, and it doesn't ever shut down, right? It should stay alive for the life of the application. And that means that it operates kind of like Octane or what's the thing? Well, Octane uses it, like Swool and Franken PHP is the one I'm trying to think of. So these projects that keep PHP alive for a long-lived thing, but they booted everything up so that you don't have to go through that boot up cycle every time. But then in PHP, it has to manage memory and all sorts of things. We have locked that to the UI. So you now have this one thread that is kind of in charge of the UI. And that means that you can only take action really on that thread when the UI needs you to take action. And if you wanted to do some background work, you need to do that on a different thread, because if you've got something that's like, let's say you're calling out to some third party, I mean, it might be your own, but let's say a third party API from the perspective of the app running on the user's device. And it's taking a long time. That would hang the UI if it was done on the UI thread, because PHP is all synchronous and linear kind of linear in the way that it runs through the code. So it would hit this call to an external service, and it would wait for that to finish before anything else could happen. And the problem with that, as you can probably tell immediately, is that the UI would then freeze until that's finished. So the user's not going to have a great experience with that. So when you're doing things in response to actions in the UI, there's a couple of ways to kind of get around it today. So if it needs to be a long running process in the background, then you can use the background queue. So we actually do spin up a separate thread already for a queue, and we run a queue worker effectively on that thread, and it's polling every so often. The native apps allow us to essentially poll this other thread repeatedly over the life of the application whilst it's in the foreground. So this gets confusing, but like with the app in the foreground, but you want to do background work, you can use a queue. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at that somewhere in here. And it relies upon the database. So you would push a job to the queue, and then within a few seconds, some work would get done. Okay. The problem with this approach is it's a little bit slow. Like there's no guarantees that it will like the work will be picked up immediately. It could be a few seconds before it gets picked up. It's a single queue with a single worker. So there's not like you couldn't fan out work to multiple workers because you just eat up the person's battery or resources. So you couldn't do that. What else? It's not, in my opinion, this is okay if you've got some very simplistic stuff. I mean, this is trying to show you an example of like, I'm doing some background work against this API, and then I just want to kind of push something over to the user to say, this is done. This incidentally will work. This looks like we're doing UI work here against the UI thread. That will, I got a feeling that this will still work, even though this doesn't actually have direct access to the UI thread because it's a separate thread. Because of the way that the dialog toast works, which is slightly weird, and it's not the same as the super native stuff at the moment. Basically, it's like its own little side channel because toasts predate the super native. But if you wanted to get a message back across to the UI, you'd have to do something really funky, like storing the response from this, or like some data about the result of this thing that you've done in a file or in the database. And then in the UI somewhere, you have a poll, something polling, or something that's going to refresh when the screen changes or something, that pulls that information and does render something, update something. There is another approach that I've got vaguely in my mind. Well, so the other one that's kind of similar to this is the event system. So it's not exactly the same because it's less arbitrary, but like most things have events, like asynchronous native calls to certain things will have events that fire. And you can fire your own events. And as long as they're emitted on the thread that you want to listen to them on, then it will work. If it's not, then it won't. So this is why events don't work across the queue. At least I don't think they do. Somebody can tell me if I'm wrong on that. But so right now you have like these very detached sort of background activity stuff, whilst the app is in the foreground. If you want to do true background activity, that's a plugin, that's a separate thing. We can look at that if anybody wants to. But what you really, really want when you're thinking about doing some work in response to the user's activity is an asynchronous task, so that you literally just hand it off to the system and say, go and do some work, and when you're done, then I'm ready to respond. And PHP just doesn't have anything like that baked in, right? This is why async PHP, true async, even makes sense to have. And given all the complexity that's in that, I think it makes sense to have some alternative that we can use just for native PHP for now. And that's what this API is about. So uh, this is quite complex. It builds on some of the stuff that we already have. So it's mostly glue, which is what this PR is talking about here. We already have background threads. We already have ways to send events across threads, actually, by the look of it. So it can do some of the stuff that I was just saying that it can't do. Obviously it can. But the actually maybe some of this is, yeah, this is parked. So it's the same thread. Sorry, it's not across threads. It just gets parked. That's useful, like for the camera when something takes over the entire screen. It's less useful when you want the user to be able to continue using the app, right? Because that something hasn't taken over the entire screen that's like fully native UI. I don't know what you'd call that really, but just like an interstitial screen, you know, that's not managed by PHP at all, like the camera, for example. That just becomes a full, I mean, it could be. This is a weird thing. We're getting into this territory where what we were doing before sort of slightly applies less now. That's very vague. I'm not explaining that very well. But you know, we set up the camera API to work in that way because we didn't have all of this functionality under the hood. Now we do have all of this. We actually could make it so that the camera doesn't behave this way. So you could have the camera living inside the screen in part of your app rather than taking over the screen. Anyway, some of this stuff was kind of here already. So this builds on top of all of that. And it gets to, I don't know if it's got a good example in here. This is quite a complex PR. And it depends upon a few places, a few pieces being in a few places that we won't look at today. But basically, you want a very simplistic syntax that just lets you declare that you're doing an asynchronous task. So that's what this is. I don't know if it's called async task still. It might be. Tell it what the work is that you want it to do, which has got to be inside of a static callback function or closure that can be serialized and doesn't depend on the state of the object that it's in. So you couldn't use this inside of a static function, inside of a static closure, because that would, it just, this context would get lost when it gets deserialized. So you have to declare these as static, and you have to not use things like this. That should throw errors and stuff if you try and do that, to tell you you can't do that. So it prevents you from trying. And then you have to handle the scenarios when it is done. So this is like JavaScript a little bit, promises and things like when it's complete, finished, when it fails, what does that look like? And again, these are all callables. Well, in this case, they're closures, but I think they can just be callables that handle the different scenarios for you. And then obviously you can see this one has got access to this because it's going to run in the context of this object at its current state when the asynchronous task has finished. But the difference here, and like why we then don't need something like true async under the hood, is because we're delegating the asynchronous work to the native side, to Swift or to Kotlin. So we're basically saying, in fact, I don't think it needs to even go that far. I think it can just go into C and just in the PHP extension, our own extension. But we're just saying to the system, like, we're not worried about all of the stuff that PHP might try and do here to manage this. It's just like, here's a chunk of work to go and do. Tell me when it's done, and tell me what it looks like when it's done. And it's a very simplistic approach to the problem, and it doesn't really enable this in PHP because this work isn't happening in PHP. It's happening on the native side. But it's as I said earlier, it's a kind of poor man's version of async. And this is what I think we'll end up using. As I say, this needs to just be tested a little bit more. But where you can get to just calling something like this async, passing it a closure of the work that you want to be done, and then handling the response. And there's another piece we were looking at. Yeah, it looks a little bit weird, but there would be like this await as well, so that you could intentionally hold the UI until the work's finished. Like if you wanted it to be sometimes run in the background, but then sometimes intentionally you don't want to parallelize some work, you wanted to make it sequential again. You could explicitly await it. But the thing is, we're not doing here, we're not adding new safe words or syntax to the PHP language. We're using, because of the way that it works, we're using specific classes that we've created in PHP userland that we then interpret in a certain way. They operate a certain way, which makes the native side work a certain way and depends upon the native side being in a certain shape. So, our extension has to have explicit handling of these things in order to work. I hope that makes some sense. I feel like I've just said word soup, but yeah, I have a read through this PR. I think it's going to raise some eyebrows. I think that this is the right way for us to go in the short term until we've got something like true async in PHP as a language, at the language level. And that is where it needs to be. And I don't think that us like creating our own fork of PHP just to bake in async, which could then diverge wildly, is necessarily the right thing for us to do. Because I think that could head us down a really kind of disastrous path if we're not very careful. And by very careful, that just means we've got to spend a lot of time getting it right. That was a lot of time on async. Let's go back to the where were we? come back to me. This one. So this is the Android, and we're trying to look at SuperNative. So let's just see. This still detects exactly the same. Look at that. It shows up. Oh yeah, I didn't see that on my iPhone because I'd already done it. This is the first time on this phone. I'm actually gonna not set that. Fine. And it's worked here as well. So this says to me, okay, there's some stuff that's not quite working because there's an icon there that's missing, which I don't understand. Maybe it's using an icon that this version of the Jump app doesn't have available for some reason. But anyway, the point is this works just fine from a Mac when all the devices are connected on the same network. And I should be able to do the 3-finger swipe, and I'm going to scan this QR code from here as well. So jump. Cool. That's worked. Got it. And that worked as well. So from my point of view, when I look at things, that's kind of a simple test. This is the sort of testing that we do, we have to do. Running it on 2 real devices, but from my Mac, that works. So at least the happy path works. Going right back to the beginning, the jump conversation and why it's not working for some people. But it's working on Android and iOS for me, so that's fine. I'm happy with that. Cool. So let's get rid of that. All right, what have we got here? Bessel says, this is a while ago, so I get what you're saying. This doesn't go for all cases. The app I made with NativePHP runs everything locally, but does give people the option to run on web in Docker. Okay, so that was the web and app together. I'm going to say, if you know the caveats and you're comfortable with the risk, fine. I can't say that that's the right way to go because there are too many people who would not understand the risks potentially and just soldier forward, and then when it's too late realize, oh, I have been shipping all of my server-side code to all of my clients to their phones, which has meant that my intellectual property now lives on all of these devices and is indefensible, which is not a great position to be in. But if you're sort of comfortable with that, then it's potentially fine. Statamic. Wow, 2:15 a.m. You should go to bed. I mean, it's now like 2:40 a.m., right? But thanks for coming along. I hope you haven't got too much planned for tomorrow or later today. What else have we got? Yes, Michelle. I agree. I think true async would be great in core. And about the main thread loop, a libuv patch for now is required to multiplex a libuv loop and the GUI loop. I don't. Yeah, that was referencing using that GUI thing instead of Composer, which I didn't quite. I still think that the question is open there by what do you mean by Composer in that context? It was GPUI as JetBrains Composer replacement. JetBrains Composer, is that something that Android Studio is doing. Is that what you're referring to? Is there something in here that's like Composer as well? Oh, come on, keyboard. I don't know. Fine. Well, you can go away because I don't need you anymore. I don't need you anymore. What else? You said this article is a good overview of the problem, and it's common to any loop-based runtime requiring a GUI. Which article? I guess the link got blocked somehow, or I'm not seeing it here. Let me see. Is it in this one? No, I can't see it. It looks like it got held somewhere, which is sad. Sorry. So maybe share it on the Discord. Maybe it won't get blocked there. Kevin. Hey, Kevin. Is there any way to do lazy loading in Supernative as done in Livewire? I mean, some of this async stuff that I've been talking about is kind of the principle of that. There is a way to do some of that background stuff, I guess you could kind of see as lazy loading. The thing I'm trying to think, in Livewire, you sort of loading up the view, and then you're declaring on the server what you want to be lazy, right? And so then it's delegating that work. So when the view gets rendered in the browser, the lazy stuff is actually triggered by JavaScript. And so then it's using asynchronous JavaScript in the browser, which is, it's a separate process essentially in the browser that's then saying, go and fetch this, like here's a bunch of data, go and do this work. And we don't have anything like that in PHP. That's kind of fundamental problem. If you're not reliant upon the client having some special capability like a JavaScript worker to go and do some asynchronous work, and we don't have the language in the language, we don't have the syntax in the language to describe that kind of stuff natively to PHP. So it's technically no, it's not possible. That's kind of fundamentally the problem. I'm just going through linearly these messages because I want to make sure I've seen it all, but there's this jumping around a bit. So Vessel says it has no backend, the web part so it does sync data the same way you guys are doing with Jump. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to chat about that in more detail because that setup sounds interesting. Like you're saying there's just it's just a front end application that people are interacting with through different means, the web being one of them. So it's just a client application. It's just not a client of anything in particular. It's not speaking to some API. And I don't think I'm clear on what you mean by it does sync data the same way you guys are doing with Jump. We don't sync data with Jump. This is Joel. This is a great comment just to throw in 60 liters of vodka. Excellent. Oh wait, is that Am I seeing the same name different ways? Oh, yeah. Okay. So switch between some profiles, I think. Between that, I think that's Joel. Excellent. I don't want to know what that 60 liters of vodka is for. Hopefully it's only for something good. We got some late hellos. Hey, Pooney. I can't remember who this is. Repair. Welcome. Victory. Right. It was something I would love to further. Yes, definitely. Definitely. Would love to go through. It's a local sync thing. Nice. Amazing job with the async task PR. Thank you. I don't know if it's amazing, but we just need to test it. So on that one, actually, just whilst we're back on that topic, if anybody wants to try this out, the needed stuff on the binaries is already merged into main. So the PHP builds can support this. Our PHP builds can support this already. So I think the only thing that you have to do, I think, is to pull this in and try it out. So you have to switch your branch to this component async API. So you'd have to, make your composer JSON accept dev stability and then run, install this dev branch instead of version 4. And you'll need to make it like as v4.2 or something, just to make it accept all your other dependencies that rely upon version 4. So yeah, there's a lot of comments in here. There's a bit of really weird automated back and forth that I wasn't expecting with one of my Claude agents. So there's just a lot of walls of text that they like. I think this was Shane's review, and it just did a wall of text. And then I'd got Claude Mobile working on this, and it was just spinning, waiting for more stuff to come in, and then it replied automatically. And I was like, no, I don't want that. So when AI goes wrong, but yeah, this is stuff that is kind of I mean, I just get to the point where I'm ignoring all of this because it's just noise. And there's some of it that actually is necessary. But you should be able to just ignore most of the stuff here and just accept that this could work, and you want to use it from PHP, and you don't need to think about all of the native side nonsense that this is talking about. And I think that somewhere in here there's a docs PR that's should be referenced somewhere. Sorry, I'm like scrolling wildly trying to find where that is. Okay, it's this one. So yeah, this is draft at the moment, waiting for that PR to be completed. And it may even need some updating. So if you try this out, also try and read the docs. So it's the docs PR 446 and mobile air PR 228. And you should be able to essentially just spin up one of these async tasks Like a simple example would be a button, right? In your UI, you tap the button and it dispatches this async task that is, even if it was just asleep for 5 seconds or 10 seconds, make it something crazy. It should sleep for 10 seconds and then do something like, when it's finished, do update the value of something on the screen. So just a piece of text, like, so you've got a text element and it's bound to the state of something in your component. So you can say this value equals, and value then would get updated and it would update the UI. And what you should see immediately is the work doesn't get done obviously until 10 seconds later because you've got a sleep in it, but that the function call, the button handler, runs to completion immediately. So it doesn't interrupt the UI thread at all. It doesn't hang the UI whilst we're waiting for the sleep to finish. And you can try the other path as well, like if you did put the sleep just straight into the button handler, that everything would sort of freeze. Maybe yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens there. I think you might end up with like the UI might not freeze so much as just other stuff can't happen. Maybe it'll even crash. Who knows? But yeah, try it out. It's not a complex API. Let me know what you think about the API itself. Like, does this feel ergonomic to do it this way? Or there is there's some cool stuff in here. Trying to find an example where it uses this async. It's not really documented here very well, but there's a wrapper for it. So when you're inside of a component, a native component, you can just do this async instead of async task dispatch. But it's the same, it's the same thing. That handles the generic case of an async task. But if you really wanted to, you can extend async task with your own classes. So you could say, this is a particular type of async task, which has got other behaviors associated with it, which would be fun. Maybe that's not that useful at the moment, but it could be. And yeah, maybe some of this work can always get moved into, I don't know. So there's flexibility there, which just feels like it's useful, could be useful. And the other thing that's worth mentioning is something I just skimmed past. Yes, this shared. So if you pass the shared method chain onto the dispatch, it will indicate to the engine when this event is completed. It should try and complete wherever you are. So and it will give it a specific event name that you can then listen for, which you decide. So you can say, I want this to be called sync complete. And so if the user has moved from one screen to another, you could still update the UI regardless of where they are, as long as you've got something that handles that event in your UI tree. So you might have a component that you always embed in every page, in every screen, that handles this sync complete event. And so then it's just, like it might be a thing that fires toasts or alerts, or it could be some little banner that slides down in your UI when something happens like this. You could have that as a shared component that you include in all of your views. It might be at the layout level or something like that. And then because the task is marked as shared, the completion handler will fire wherever you are. But there's an optimization that's baked in that when the completion handlers run, by default, they're scoped to the screen that started the process. So if you don't do this and the user moves to another screen, that completion handler won't fire at all. So it's not just that it's like fired in the background somewhere and now that you're not responding to that work because that screen is out of view. It's actually not called. So the work gets done, but the completion handler doesn't fire unless it's shared. But if the user's on the same screen, then it doesn't need to be shared. So it might be that this ends up becoming the default, honestly. Maybe we have to name the tasks, and that's where like subclassing comes in, because then you don't have to think about a name and whatever. But for now, I think this is a good test bed for this thing. So yeah, give it a go. Feel free to comment on the PR, this one in the docs and the one in the library. That would be good. That would be very helpful. So Shane is on vacation enjoying Laravel and Simon's slaving away. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say I'm slaving away. I'm melting. That's what's happening. Raj, the classes are coming. They're all coming. It's great that you've got through them all already. We've got a lot of stuff that we've got to work through. So I think Shruti's just working about as fast as she can to get more content out. So yeah, I think the next few weeks, the plan was to have content dropping every couple of weeks. There's been just because we've been traveling a lot, there's been a delay on getting some of the stuff resolved, and which means she's not been able to record some of the things that she perhaps would have done by now. But that's fine, it's like it'll come. So I think maybe you might be talking about a different kind of lazy load there, where there's like skeleton shows up, which you can do in part. That's not really lazy loading. That's just like making the UI look like it's doing something when it's not doing something. Because it's doing something that's blocking the UI. So it's like choosing to put loading pane in. It's like, or a spinner, you could do it with a spinner. Show a spinner, do the work that's going to block the UI, but don't let the user move away, because then we'll lose the context of what we're doing. And then when it's ready, then we'll know about it, and then we'll show the UI. So we've just like forced the user to freeze. But we showed them some animation whilst that's happening, so that they feel like something's happening. It's a bit smoke and mirrors. I think that's probably what you're referring to, Kevin. Yeah, this is exactly the case that this is for, as you've said. This is a perfect use case. So pull to refresh exactly is that problem, where it is going to block. Well, I don't know the behavior exactly, and I need to have a play around with that. But if pull to refresh was really, really simple, like it took a few hundred milliseconds for the action to take place, respond, and populate the UI with any necessary changes, like populate your database, whatever sources of the UI are, then it's going to feel kind of okay. But as soon as it goes on for more than, like, I think actually the threshold is something like 200 milliseconds. But if it goes on for more than a second, for example, the user's going to notice. And I think in the way that we're doing it, what that means is the UI might still look like it's interactive, but if you tap on the next thing to try and do something, it's not going to take that action because the thread is still spinning on some, and it's probably not even going to queue it up. I can't remember how that will work, honestly. I've got a feeling that it would even just drop those secondary taps. And so the user would have to do what they were doing again anyway. Yeah, it's not great. And that's why we need async. That's why PHP needs async. And I think, like, a lot of people in the PHP world at the moment are very focused on web. And there is a certain case for async there, potentially, anyway. Yeah, it's maybe slightly limited in that context, but I would say it shows itself as way more valuable as soon as you get into doing stuff on somebody's system, less so much on your server, because the benefit is when they're directly interacting with the UI, and we don't directly interact with the UI and the web. You are interacting with a representation of the UI that has been transferred over the network. And so, yeah, to this kind of Vessel's point, most UX design, yeah, on the web certainly is smoke and mirrors most of the time. And that is, we masquerade because of the network. We try and remove the network from the equation a little bit by making it feel like it's not there. But it always is, and we can't get rid of that, really. But the rubber meets the road when you're actually, people are interacting directly with your application. When it's literally their fingers that are interacting with your application, they need it to feel fast. They need it to feel like it's responsive. And there's loads of studies that show, like, apps do better, like, from a reviews and business performance perspective, when their apps are performant. And that's what we want for PHP as well. There's no reason that it can't be, and it's going to be. This should allow for that. So yeah, give this PR a spin. I've just looked at the time, and I can't believe that I've been rabbiting on my own for 2 hours. You guys shouldn't let me do this. You should be telling me off. You should be told me, it's been 2 hours, dude. You need to have a drink. You need to have a little bit of, did you see me drink anything in the last hour or so? I haven't drunk. My mouth's as dry as a desert. Terrible. I'm really bad at that. My wife tells me off for not drinking enough water. That's why you distract me. You're just so good looking, all of you. So yes, anyway, the other thing, what was I going to do? Before we go, there is this, because I am going to go. There's no point carrying on with all of this. Everybody's getting tired, aren't you? Well, some people are making gin, but that's a whole different. I'm not going to comment on this because I don't think it's necessarily what everybody wants to hear, but you're absolutely right. Right, so let's get away from these. I wanted to share, I can't deal with all these distractions. The final thing for today, this is like, I didn't tee this up very well, did I? You should stick around to the end because there's a really important thing at the end. Now everybody's sort of disappearing, but it's fine. Do you know what I finally got around to doing? Which has taken me way too long. Reviewing plugins again. It's been about a month actually, all told, since I last looked at reviewing plugins, and there's been a bunch. Let me find my. Is it this one? I've got a list of them. So I'm going to tell you how many have been approved. 1, 2, 3, 4. 14. I can count. I can count. That's good, isn't it? There's been 14 new plugins approved for the marketplace in just the last couple of days. So you will have noticed, or won't have noticed, depending on, depending on your setup. We didn't send emails for every single one of those, which is a good thing, because I think that would have amounted to some hideous number of emails getting sent out. But there's a bunch of free plugins. This is really nice to see. I love seeing free plugins. You know, I think actually if I go to here and go to the packages listing, which we don't have all of the free plugins that are available on the marketplace, but you can always see all of the free plugins that are available on packages, because that's the only place that you distribute them. So there's 97. That's cool. 97. Can you even see that? I don't know. Is that showing up in the underneath my face? That's no good. It's there. 97 plugins. Let's put me out the way a little bit more. So this is amazing. I mean, I know some of those are ours. If we discount our ones from that, 1, 2, 3, I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I think that's about right. 13. So there's 80 something. Yeah, I'm not seeing any more. And this is kind of ordered by number of downloads, sort of. We have 13 free plugins, which is amazing as well. Consider that. The majority of plugins that we're producing are free and open source. So we're surviving despite that, I would say, which is great. Thank you, everybody, for your support. But that means that there's 80. What's that? 84 none first-party free plugins. That is amazing. And a majority of those are in the marketplace, so you should be able to see those here. And we're going to work on improving some of this. In fact, actually, it's quite surprising. You know, this would suggest that there's actually about half of them aren't on the marketplace at all, which means people aren't necessarily submitting to the marketplace. They're just putting them out on packages, which is kind of interesting. I expected, but you know, if you're making a free plugin, don't be afraid to put it into the marketplace, because we do list most of them. I mean, there's only been a few that are free ones that we've not listed just because it collides with one of our paid ones. That would be the only reason not to do it. So yeah, it's very cool. There's a lot of activity happening around plugins again, which is fine. Shall we go through some of these new plugins though? Because they're cool, and I think I want to pick. I'm going to pick a few. I'm going to pick some of the premium ones because there's been a few premium ones. Yes, this one. This I think this is Neo, all one web. He's been on a tear. He's been creating loads of plugins. So these two, actually, I'm going to do Ruben's one about screen widgets, but principally same problem, right? Solving for widgets. So let's go through these. Anyway, so share target, receive links, photos, and files from third-party app into your app. That is inbound Android share target. Your app appears in the share sheet and receives shared text URLs and images into PHP. That's cool. Oh, we need to make those images work better. That's not very good. I think that's probably supposed to be a big image full width because that's tiny. We'll improve that. Yeah, this I'm not going to read through it all, but I know what this is straight away. When you want your app to receive data from other apps, you want it to be in the share sheet. That's very cool. This is doing that. It says Android and it's got iOS support beta. That doesn't go anywhere. So there's some bits here that we need to improve through. One tap companion shortcut. See iOS below. iOS. It's clearly it's because of the emoji that hasn't worked. Yep, need to fix that. Works where a companion shortcut your users add with one tap. I bet some of this doesn't work either. Yeah, that's referencing these external docs with a. I mean, it must be a relative URL in the README because it's trying to go to nativephp.com. That's not going to work. Anyway, this looks cool. It's a good starting point, I think, if your app needs this kind of functionality. And I've had quite a few people ask me about this up to now. So I think this is a really nice addition. It would be nice to see this get fully fleshed out because I know that you can do all of that on iOS without kind of forcing the user to do anything. Because this sounds like the entry lands in the show sheet actions rather than blah blah blah. Each user adds it once. So yeah, that I don't think they would need to do that. And this is I mean, it's actually saying it. A fully native share extension is the roadmap. I know from having explored some of that, it's not straightforward because you end up on iOS, you have to basically bundle it as a second application. It's pretty tricky. Yeah, but it'll be good when this is included as well. I think that's a good. So apps becoming targets for sharing across the platform that you're running on. Go and check this plugin out by All One Web. And then we've got widgets. Similar kind of problem, I guess, in some respect. A widget is another external entry point into your application. I do feel like this has got some PRs hanging off of it. I think I saw earlier. Maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking about a different PR. Oh no, it's here. Yeah, patches needed. So there's a few PRs that some of these are released already, but I think a couple of these are still waiting testing. So, but this will be very cool. I think there probably should be a video or some screenshots. I think if you're gonna do complex plugins, it really does call for having a video of the plugin, at least for the reviewers to see. But also, don't be afraid to do one and link to it from here in the README. Pretty sure you can embed a video and it will just work. Like, if it just stick the YouTube link at the top of the page, and it will show up here in our README. Maybe we'll come up with a better way of handling that, but something that really shows people without them having to read all of the stuff exactly what this is doing and how it's working across both platforms would be cool. Yeah, so I'm not, well, is there anything in here that we should, looks pretty easy to install. Cool. I mean, I'm not going to try it out right now, but I definitely see value in having widgets. People can put them on their home screens and all sorts of stuff. That's cool. So yeah, go and give this one a go. I think that's going to be very good. There is an equivalent sort of plugin by All One Web as well that I released, which is, I said we were going to just look at one. So it'd be interesting to see how those two sort of work in tandem. I mean, obviously you wouldn't install both of them, but yeah, I might have a play around with those at some point. And native PHP actions everywhere. Another one by All One Web. Tiles, NFC, and more. So it's kind of another external entry point. Again, this is the theme for these ones. This is like app intents on iOS, I guess. So this is how you get into Siri and shortcuts and search results. And then there's a different version for Android. So quick settings, automation links. I don't know all of these things because I'm not used to Android, but that kind of sounds like it might be the right thing. Siri, yeah. Cool. One tap right next to Wi-Fi. Ooh. So like in the action sheet, I guess, when you pull that down from the top, something like that. That's cool. Yeah, app intents are about to get like a massive upgrade in iOS 27 as well, because they're going to plug into the new Siri and all of the AI stuff that's being exposed. So this is like, you should get on this. And hopefully Neo will keep this up to date with all of that, and you'll get all of those things, because this is cool stuff. Yeah, there's loads. I mean, he spent a lot of time, by the look of it, getting this into a very clear shape of like how to do this on Android, how to do this on iOS. It's very comprehensive documentation. I like it. This is the kind of stuff that you need for a good plugin. So cool. Yeah, go and check those out. There have been a bunch more. I think, yeah, some of you are kind of commenting on yours were approved. That's because I went through and approved them. So we'll try and stay on top of that a little bit more going forwards and get approvals going a bit quicker. I think that matters more so for premium plugins like these ones that I've just shown you. We can stop sharing now. I've done that. And less so for the freebies, because you can launch them on Packagist and share them wherever you share them. And to be fair, it doesn't. You can, we're not exclusive about how you. Excuse me, about how you list your plugins. If you wanted to sell them, you can sell them through other means. You haven't got to go through the marketplace. I think it's just, we know that the marketplace is the place where people are going to look first, probably, for plugins. So, yeah, I do want to get that faster. So I'm sorry for everybody who's been waiting for plugins to come, but they're there now. Cool. All right. Well, I'm completely spent. My voice is almost going. And oh, look who's made it. I don't know if he's still here. When was this? A few minutes ago. What's up, dude? You shouldn't be on here. If he's still there, you should have been enjoying your time away. But anyway, I love you. Thank you for coming and saying hello. I'm gonna go. This is it. It wasn't the stream that I intended, because I was hoping that we were going to look at some desktop stuff and whatever, but I'm kind of happy to have gone through some of this stuff with you guys, and thanks for all of the questions and comments and things. So yeah, as I said earlier, come again next week for the big news that was revealed yesterday. If you don't know what it is and you want to find out what it is, come along next week, because you'll find out what it is. We'll talk about that in some more detail. But yeah, have a good week. Have a good weekend. And stay classy, or something like that. Stay saucy. And I'll see you next week.